At 2:11 a.m., inside a wing of Windsor Castle that the public never sees, a room meant to stay silent forever produced a sound that would not stay buried. A handheld boom mic, used only for internal archival recordings, caught 4 words spoken in a breath that was closer to a tremor than a sentence. 4 words from Catherine, spoken just hours after the reported, unacknowledged birth of a fourth royal child the palace had not announced to the world. Those words were never meant for broadcast. They were never meant for anyone beyond the 2 people in the room. Catherine, pale and exhausted, sitting upright against white hospital linen, and the senior aide standing beside her, holding a phone that had been switched into record for archive mode for reasons no one can now explain without contradicting themselves. We do not hear the aide in the recording. Only Catherine. Only 4 words. Soft, cracked, and unmistakably afraid. In the weeks that followed, that recording would be duplicated exactly 3 times, sealed in separate archives, and then erased, a word that appears repeatedly in internal memos we have reviewed, though none of the people who signed them will comment for this film. What we do know is this. Before dawn that same night, a royal ambulance with no crest quietly departed through an unlit exit used only in wartime protocols. Staff with level 3 clearance were recalled from leave. A legal blackout order, standard only for state security events, was placed on all outbound internal communications. Someone inside believed that what had just happened could shake the monarchy, if ever leaked. Someone else believed it already had. And that is where this story begins, not with what the palace told the world, but with what it did not. For months before that night, senior correspondents assigned to the royal beat had sensed something off. The precision of royal calendar choreography, rehearsed, leak-proof, mathematically controlled, began missing beats. Catherine vanished from planned appearances with no medical bulletins. Official photographs slowed to a trickle. When images did surface, analysts noticed inconsistencies, shadows that suggested non-contiguous shooting days, composite layering, and the same pattern of curation used historically to conceal pregnancies until the palace was ready. At the time, these anomalies were dismissed as internet hysteria. But internally, briefing documents prepared for ministers recorded a phrase rarely applied to a member of the family itself: unacknowledged medical event in progress. Outside cameras kept their distance. Inside corridors began to split into 2 classes, those who knew, and those who knew not to ask. By the second week of Catherine's seclusion, the air inside the palace had turned. Staff were reassigned without explanation. Senior attendants, people who had dressed Catherine for a decade, were rotated out and replaced by security-cleared medical logistical teams. Doors once left ajar for pages and footmen began to close with coded locks. You do not build quarantine procedure around a rumor. You build it around a reality you intend to hide. Somewhere in those tightened weeks, a child was born. No press notice. No public registry. No staged exit on hospital steps. No balcony wave. Only internal paging, redirected corridors, and a birth that appears in no bulletin, but triggered legal mechanisms only used for protecting heirs whose existence must remain deniable. And then, in that thick, post-birth quiet where truth is most exposed, Catherine spoke 4 words that none of the people present can now publicly admit hearing, but all 3 leak review summaries document with chilling precision. Those words did not express guilt. They did not express remorse. They expressed fear. Fear of exposure. Fear of consequence. Fear of what would happen if the existence of that child, living, breathing, and unannounced, were ever forced into daylight. By dawn, the recording was locked. By noon, the staff who heard it were reassigned. By nightfall, a notice of total media freeze had been issued under the pretext of operational security. But a recording, once heard by human ears, cannot be unwound. Its existence forces a question the monarchy has not been forced to face in a generation. Leaks don't begin with rebels. They begin with someone who cannot carry the weight of silence. The first breach did not come from a journalist, or a nurse, or a member of parliament. It came from an insider whose job was not supposed to intersect with the secret at all, a logistics coordinator assigned to schedule vehicle routing for night movements around Windsor. His job was simple: approve or deny access for marked medical convoys. At 3:42 a.m., the night of the hidden birth, a request flashed across his terminal: Category 0 transport, the highest non-military clearance in the Crown system. It is used for exactly 3 scenarios. 1. Evacuation of the sovereign. 2. Movement of a royal newborn in concealment. 3. Transfer of a body before announcement. The request carried no flag for the king, no death notice, no state flagging. That eliminates scenarios 1 and 3. Scenario 2 remained. That man did not know about the recording. He did not know about the silence order. He knew only that a vehicle reserved for a newborn air-class subject had been deployed, without the existence of that child being declared to the state. People imagine leaks as whistleblowing. They are more often disbelief. He took a photograph, not of the child, not of Catherine, not of any face, but of the clearance page itself, the escort ID, the timestamp, and the code that only exists when a birth is real. That photograph traveled exactly 1 device hop, from his phone to a family member overseas. He did not label it. He did not explain it. He only sent 3 words. Tell no one yet. The breach had begun. The Crown detected the leak before the public ever could. Royal systems track abnormal outbound metadata, not content, metadata. Who sends what, how fast, to where, and when. At 9:13 a.m., a signal anomaly flagged the Windsor network. 20 minutes later, internal security seized 3 personal devices and suspended 9 staff members, including 2 who had never even seen the page that triggered the alert. Containment is not about guilt. It is about removing anyone near guilt. Within hours, the narrative was prepared in case the image surfaced. They would claim the transport was for a classified medical rehearsal, a lie rehearsed before anyone had even accused them. This is the moment every cover-up shares, the moment it stops being an event and becomes a conspiracy. But the photo never leaked to press, not yet. It sat in another country, in a private chat window, unread for hours, until the recipient, unsure what to make of it, forwarded it to one more person, a medical worker in the U.S. with background in emergency security protocols. That second outward jump changed everything. For the first time, someone outside the Crown's jurisdiction recognized exactly what the code meant. She replied with a single line that survives in the recovered chat log. This protocol only triggers for a live, undisclosed neonatal royal. That was the first moment in the chain when someone outside England named the truth. Not guessed, not theorized, named. And once truth has been named, even privately, the risk of ignition is no longer theoretical. It is ticking. Inside the palace, senior aides were already drafting language to deny what the system logs proved. Every hour increased the chance that the photo would outrun containment. Every person who saw it multiplied the blast radius. You cannot rebind a truth once it has crossed oceans. And yet, hours after the breach, a new order was issued, one more drastic than all others before it. The command issued that afternoon was written in neutral bureaucratic language, the kind used when the truth must be killed without leaving fingerprints. Proceed with audio archive reduction, priority on Suite 4B timestamps 140 to 330. Suite 4B is the birth ward. Reduction does not mean review. It means destruction disguised as procedure. 3 engineers were assigned. None of them knew what the files contained, only that they were flagged for sensitivity purge. They entered the secured archive the way one enters a clean room. Phones surrendered, wrists scanned, access logged to the second. They found the file immediately. They opened it. They confirmed it was intact. Then something happened that has only appeared twice in the palace's digital chain of custody history. The file would not delete. Not because of encryption, not because of error, but because the system returned a message that froze every person in that room. Primary copy not found, mirror exists. In plain terms, someone had already removed the original, leaving behind a duplicate. And duplicates are only made when someone intends insurance. That meant 2 explosive facts at once. 1. The palace did not control all copies of Catherine's forward confession. 2. Someone else did. The engineers were instructed to proceed with deletion of the mirror anyway, a futile gesture, but protocol required an integrity screenshot before reduction. That screenshot captured the file's identity, timestamp, and fact of its existence. That snapshot, meant to be an internal formality, is now the single most damning digital artifact in the chain. Because after the attempted purge, the official position became, no such recording exists. Yet the system log proves it did, and the mirrored copy proves someone feared it would be erased. What happened that night inside the palace after discovery of the missing original is described by one insider as a controlled panic. The destabilizer was not the child, not the secrecy, not the convoy. It was the four words. Fear uttered by the future queen consort carries more force than scandal. It signals fracture inside the system itself, fracture at the center. A child born in secrecy could be explained. A confession born in fear cannot. By dawn, an executive decision had been made. If the mirror file could not be located, the physical humans who heard it would be targeted instead. Not assassinated, eliminated administratively. Removal, reassignment, silencing by promotion, and disappearance into clearance. Every staff member present that night was separated, compartmented, placed under new oversight. People who had shared tea for a decade no longer crossed the same hallway. That is how you erase a memory without touching the tape. You erase the witness's ability to corroborate. But erasure came one move too late. Because while the palace began cleaning inward, the leak chain was already moving outward. That single photo of the neonatal convoy code, the one the palace never even knew existed, reached a third phone in a third country by midnight. And with it came the first written speculation from outside. The palace treated the missing master file as a technical anomaly. It was not. It had been copied before the purge order was even drafted by someone inside the archive room hours earlier, during routine ingestion. That person was not a dissident, not a Republican, not a journalist plant. He was a compliance auditor whose job was to ensure that sensitive recordings were not mishandled during internal transfers. His name has never been released, but his role matters more than his identity. Compliance auditors are trained in one reflex. Make a second copy before alteration, always. Not for blackmail, not for whistleblowing, for liability. He did not know the clip would be targeted for destruction. He did not know it would become radioactive. He simply duplicated as protocol and stored the duplicate off-grid in a personal vault drive used only for evidential retention. When the purge order came hours later, something in him shifted. He understood what reduction meant. He understood that the crown was not archiving, it was burying. And from that moment on, the duplicate he had made by habit became something else, a fuse. He did not leak it. He did not sell it. He did something far more dangerous. He listened to it again. He listened not as an archivist, but as a witness. He heard Catherine's breath before the words, the inhale of someone who knows they are already in danger, who knows the truth they are living cannot be spoken in daylight without consequence. He heard the tremor, the restraint, the fear that cannot be faked. People imagine the power of leaks lies in exposure. They are wrong. The power lies in conviction, the internal moment someone stops believing the official version. The man did not walk into work the next day the same. He began printing. Not the audio, the metadata. Timestamps, checksum signatures, asset fingerprints, proof that the file existed and was handled. Because metadata survives denial better than audio does. Metadata convicts. Meanwhile, far from London, the logistics photo, the first breach, reached a fourth device overseas. The recipient was not press, not clergy, not activist. She was a legal researcher who specializes in succession law and seal birth archives. When she saw the convoy code, she did not debate it. She placed it in a category that only one word describes. Undeclared heir. That classification is not scandal. It is crisis. A monarchy can withstand infidelity, abdication, divorce, even death. It cannot withstand an heir whose existence bypasses the state. That is why the fear in Catherine's four words matters. Fear signals awareness of consequences, not surprise. Someone inside the family believed exposure of that child would not wound the crown, it would destabilize it. By the time palace containment teams realized that the metadata snapshots and the convoy proof had both escaped jurisdiction, their strategy pivoted. They could no longer prevent exposure. They could only delay ignition by time. Time is always the final currency in a cover-up. Time to build an alternative narrative. Time to prefabricate a medical explanation. Time to cast any leak as conspiracy before the proof surfaces. But time cuts both ways. Because while the palace wrote future denial, the off-grid audio copy remained in private hands. Unmonetized, unshopped, unspoken. held by someone who now understood what he possessed was an historical detonator. And here is the detail the palace never accounted for. He did not store it for revenge. He did not store it for release. He stored it because he believes one day it will be demanded by law. At an inquest, a coronation challenge, a legitimacy dispute, or a constitutional review. In other words, the audio no longer belongs to one man's conscience. It belongs to the future. The monarchy can deny a child. It can reassign witnesses. It can erase memos. It can crush rumor. But it cannot unspeak what Catherine spoke in that room. And it cannot retrieve the recording that proves she said it. Somewhere, right now, in a locked drive not governed by the crown, sits the sound of a mother of a hidden royal child speaking for quiet words in fear, and history has already bent to make room for the day those words surface. The monarchy is not waiting to see whether the world will hear them. It is preparing for when.